Morning, everyone, and welcome to our Aurora Document Management for Invoice Processing webinar. This is presented by myself. I'm Dave Vavlas, Head of Professional Services and the Software Division here at Aurora, and I'm joined today by my colleague Mark Jones, who's our Professional Services Consultant and DocuWare expert. So while we could talk about the many benefits of document management from compliance, audit trails, security, what we're going to focus on today specifically around the invoice processing and the benefits that automating this process can do for your business. So when we look at some of the complexities around accounts payable, one of the main things that we need to look at are the challenges. So when we look at the challenges faced today, one of the biggest ones are manual data entry with clerical errors and wasted time. Now, this is a big challenge when it comes to dealing with traditional paper-based processes, and in fact an IDC study found that information workers typically spend as much as 2.5 hours a day searching for information in those traditional processes. Now, when it comes to manual data entry, that same study made unfortunately even worse discoveries, which is that up to 40% of an employee's workday can be spent working with manual data entry tasks. Now, the upshot of this is not only is it wasted time, but it is more error prone. Now, when you couple that with 44% since 2023 of the UK workforce now have some kind of hybrid working in place, this does create complex coordination challenges, potentially delays, and even worse, some confusing processes, particularly when you're waiting for remote staff or other senior stakeholders to try and access that information to be able to speed the process along so that you can ultimately pay your suppliers in a timely manner. Now, the upshot of that is it does create security gaps because information is traversing in unconventional ways through your business, creating painful auditing processes, and even worse for your business, potentially document loss. Now, when it comes to the AP process, those could have real-world implications. For example, submitting late filings to HMRC could result in fines to your business. So how do we resort to solving those challenges? So with DocuWare, we can take away some of the heavy burden of manual data entry and particularly clerical errors by implementing automatic intelligent indexing processes using AI to extract the data from documents ready for data export, massively reduces the time by staff and actually cuts down on the manual data entry process, reducing the errors tolerant by humans. The upshot of that is we can then create less complexity by adapting smart, adaptable workflows and invoice routing, including approvals and three-way matching to ensure that that data is actually sanitized and checked against your existing ERP or finance software. Once that's all implemented, we can then plug the security gaps, ensuring better business continuity, simplified auditing processes, and ensuring that you actually keep up to date with your compliance across your regulatory bodies. So while I won't talk deeply about this process, one of the things that we're going to look at today, particularly around the live demo, is the workflow around accounts payable. However, what we're hoping to show you today is that we can cut data entry time by up to 95% by implementing intelligent. This can then look at duplicate checking and three-way matching against your system to ensure the invoice matches, the number matches, the date matches, to ensure that there are no errors as we proceed further along that process. All things that used to have to be done by a human are now going to be done using AI and an automated workflow. Now, when you come to the approval steps, this potentially could improve approval time by up to 80%. And particularly when you couple with the fact that that can be accessed from any device using a mobile app, we can work through a web browser, or we can work through a native desktop app experience, meaning that your remote, mobile, and office workers all have access to the same information at the same time, further speeding up the process. So while I can wax lyrical about all this, I'm actually going to hand over to my colleague Mark now, who's going to walk you through an interactive demo of the benefits of DocuWare, and he's going to show you the DocuWare interface with real-world examples of what your users will experience when interacting with the software. He's going to show you the benefits of using document trays and look at the standout features of intelligent indexing and one-click indexing, followed by two real-world example processes with an invoice processing example, including your three-way matching against your existing system, and looking at two-step approval processes as well, finally ready for exporting that booking data into your finance application ready to pay your suppliers. And I'll now hand over to my colleague Mark.
Perfect, thank you. Good morning, everyone, and thanks for joining. So just to start and to set the scene a little bit on how this will work, I'm currently logged in. We're using a DocuWare VM, and we're logged in. I'm logged in down here on 3 different browsers, and the reason I've done that is just to stop me having to switch users and log off the PC, log on as another user. So the first browser I've got open, I'm logged in as a user called Peggy Jenkins in this kind of fictional company that manufactures roller coasters. She's our account clerk. I'm also logged in as the CFO, Elizabeth Cash, which as we see the workflow going, she'll get tasks that she'll need to approve. And also, finally, I'm logged in as the CEO, Peter King, and again, he'll get a task later on in the demonstration. Now, DocuWare does come in kind of 2 flavors. So there's the cloud version and there's the on-premise version. 90% of the solutions sold today are cloud, but just for your peace of mind, if data sovereignty and data security is kind of top priority, then you can have it on-premise within your data center or local servers. They are, in terms of the cloud, as I said, it is 90% of what's sold. It is all hosted in Microsoft Azure, so it's as safe as it can be in terms of your data privacy and data sovereignty in terms of the locations within the UK and Ireland. So we're going to start by showing you the interface of DocuWare, and what DocuWare do very cleverly is they try and relate the software to real world scenarios in terms of manual paper-based processes. So for example, currently in a manual paper-based process, you'll have a document tray that's maybe sat on your desk for work or invoices that need to be processed, and you work through those, manually typing that data into your accounts payable, Sage, Xero, whatever your software might be. So what DocuWare do, they use that kind of terminology in the digital world. So you can see along the top here, we've got document trays, and straight away, if you've ever looked at any other document management system before, you should see this interface as a much cleaner, much slicker looking and much more user-friendly system to other systems that have maybe buttons all over the place and can be quite daunting for users migrating from what they used to a digital process. So on this left-hand side, you'll see my document tray. I have access to several document trays. They can be shared between users or departments, or you can have them kind of secure for your own document tray and your own documents. How do we get documents into there? So currently, I don't have a scanner to hand, so I've preloaded these particular documents into the document tray, but they can be scanned in at a scanner. They can be drag and dropped into this area here, or we can monitor a mailbox or mailboxes that if, for example, you have suppliers that send to accounts at, then we can strip the attachment, monitor that mailbox, strip the attachment off it, import it into the system automatically into any given document tray. You'll also notice that along the top or top left-hand corner of these particular documents, we have these little kind of green and amber flags, if you will, and that's what Dave referred to as intelligent indexing. And what's happening there is the system is using AI and its clever abilities to try and automatically determine what information we might need off any given invoice. And it works on a traffic light system. So green means it's successfully got the information we need. Amber means that it's had a go, but there might be a few things missing that you need to confirm. And if it comes up in red, then it's basically saying, I've never seen this invoice layout before. I need to be trained. On average, it takes between 3 and 4 attempts from a red invoice or red intelligent indexing flag to go to green. So the 3rd, 4th time that it sees that, you can expect a red one to then be fully recognized within the system. So we're going to now go through, as Dave mentioned, 2 scenarios that we call a perfect world scenario. So what I mean by perfect world, taking this WB Mason invoice, this could be something like a utility bill or something you're expecting to come in to the business that maybe meets a certain threshold in terms of the amount it is. So if it was like an electricity bill, and you know every quarter or every month, whenever your bill comes in, that your electricity bill generally is never under £700 as an example. That then would go through the quick match workflow and say, we know this invoice, it's our electricity bill, it's under the pound threshold, it's a match. If it was to go over that, then we can then forward that invoice to somewhere else to say, actually, yes, we do know this invoice, but it's a bit more than we expected this time. So someone needs to take a look at it and find out why that might be. So we'll start by clicking on our invoice that we're on already, and we click on our little store icon here, and these are our file cabinets, and you'll have several of these throughout different departments within the business. The one we're focusing on today is going to be the accounts payable one, and you'll see the IP, and Dave refers to AP and IP. This system's set up for American format, so IP just referring to invoice processing, AP referring to accounts payable, so it's just different terminology. So we click on accounts payable, and straight away on this left-hand side, this is fully customizable, these fields that we've kind of gathered from the document, so you can have more or less if you needed to. We can also gather the line item information. Now, not many companies or systems do require line item information, which is the reason I've not done it on here. It is a kind of speciality requirement, because most ERP systems and your Sages and things like that only really, for invoices, they only really require the header and footer information of the invoice. You'll notice that everything that's green on here means that it successfully dragged it. If I was to click in this box here, it'll highlight in yellow on the page itself as to where that information's been picked up from the invoice. I can do on the other one, subtotal. You can see the little yellow kind of highlight there where it's picking that information up. If, for example, the invoice number is picked it up from there, it is correct, but if it wasn't, how do we correct that? So again, we referred to manual data entry and people typing things wrong when you're typing them into your system. We don't need to worry about that in this situation, because we can use what we call one-click indexing. So if that field was wrong and it picked it up from the wrong section, all I do to correct that, I don't need to touch the keyboard. I'll say, actually, that invoice number is located here, where it says reference number, and I'll just click it, and it replaces that invoice number with the number it's recognized. If I was to save that or store this particular document from this point, then that would retain that information, and the next time the WB Mason invoice came in, it would know where to look, and it looks at this reference number here for the invoice number. However, it was correct, so I'm just going to click back and click back on my invoice number just there. Once I'm happy, you give it a quick glance over to make sure everything's correct, and then we just press store. That then kicks off the quick match workflow that we spoke about. And Peggy, who I'm logged into, will get a task just along here. So we click on Peggy's tasks, and you'll see straight away it's gone IP for completion. And the activity that Peggy needs to take is straight through completion, which means that all she needs to do is complete the process. Now, because this is a known invoice, the GL codes, the general ledger codes, are known because it's saved in the master record within the system. So we can change the amounts for each kind of GL account if we need to. In this case, we don't. And then you can say, right, absolutely fine. If you wanted to, again, these are fully customizable fields. We can choose to recheck the invoice and give a reason to recheck it. We can request a new invoice direct with the supplier and give a reason as to why we're doing so. And we can reject it as well or put it on hold. And again, these kind of options here on the left are fully customizable as to what you require in terms of your kind of workflow process. So for this, we're just going to go confirm and then complete that process for that invoice. And you can see straight away how quick that process was. Invoice coming in, it's in my in tray. I've just give it a glance over to make sure the indexing fields have been picked up correctly. I've confirmed it, and now it's gone from my tasks. What we'll notice up here, we've got a little lists section. And what a list can be quite a powerful tool within DocuWare because they're kind of pre-configured search results. So you don't need to actually search for a given term because these lists are kind of automatically searching constantly. So if I click on this little arrow here, you'll see I've got several different lists kind of configured. Some we've got documents in, and one that we've got a document in that's just popped up in terms of that one. If I click on this ready to export, we will see the invoice that we've just stored because that particular invoice is now ready to be exported into our account system. You'll also notice on the actual image now, we've got the stamp that's been automatically applied to the actual document. If you was to print this, you can choose to print it with the stamp or without the stamp. However, we're trying to get away from that kind of usual process of printing and approving invoices. So this is a digital stamp that just again gives you that real world feeling of what used to happen when it's manual and you used to have those big ink stamps that said paid or processed or whatever it might have said. So it just gives that familiarity with what you used to. We've also got another list which you'll notice that's called Open PO, and that'll bring us on to our next kind of perfect world scenario that we're going to run through, and this will be a three-way match. So for the utility bill, obviously we don't have a purchase order for that, but this one, this particular invoice, we just double click on that. This one, here's a purchase order waiting for an invoice to come in, and it's as you can see, it's a decent value of an order. So we need to make sure that it matches A, the purchase order, and B, the delivery note that we get as well. So to do this, we can close these lists, or we'll just go back to our document tray, and we're going to find the invoice for that particular purchase order, which is this US Steel invoice, and we can see there the same high value amount. And we can do the same process. So we just go to store, we go to our accounts payable, and we can see again we've come up all green for this particular document. So the intelligent indexing has done its thing, recognize the fields where I need to. We can click, we can highlight as to where it's pointing to on the particular document, and we can say, right, checked that, absolutely fine, press store. Again, being logged in as the Peggy, the accounts, we go to tasks, and this again has come through for completion, but this time it's done a three-way match. And how do we know it's done a three-way match? If we scroll down slightly, we can see validation status here, three-way match. We have the same options on the left if we need to recheck them, but you might be thinking, well, that's great, it's done a three-way match, but I want to see those documents, and that's fine. So all we do, we just click on this little arrow here, and we can see the related documents, three-way match. We just click on that, and it takes you to all those documents that have matched within that set. So we've got the invoice that we've just stored, we've got the packing slip, and we've got the purchase order. So all that clever workflow is happening in the background where it's saying, right, is the invoice matching the purchase order number? Is the value of it matching the packing slip, etc., etc. Now, in most packing slips, in all honesty, wouldn't have the actual value on it, but that doesn't matter because we can match it on the order number, the purchase order, or different relevant things on the actual document itself. And then we've got the purchase order in there. So that's all matched. And Peggy's task again is a nice and easy one. All she needs to do, because we've got the actual GL codes already pre-populated, and we can just press confirm. And that completes the two quick-way matches, sorry, the three-way match and the quick match, which are perfect world scenarios. But as we know, not every invoice would be a perfect world. So what do we do in the situations where it's not a regular bill or there's not a purchase order waiting for it? So in that scenario, we'll need to do another workflow where we get approvers to approve what it is we're being billed for. So for this one, we're going to do two invoices. I'm going to select these two. So all I do to select two at a time is hold my shift key down. I can select two, go into my store, accounts payable. The first one, now this one is a little bit different. This is a phone bill. We've got a couple of green sections here for our intelligent indexing. Due date's yellow. So it's basically saying, well, I've seen this invoice before, but you need to tell me where the due date is. However, it's a phone wizard and there is no due date on the invoice, so it's fine. It's not a mandatory thing that we have to put something in there. The next time it sees the phone wizard, because we leave it blank again, then it'll learn that actually due date is supposed to be blank, so is PO number, so is tax, so is freight, as they're green, and there's none of those items on this particular invoice. So that's okay, so we can just press store. Since we selected two invoices this time, we don't need to go back into our document tray. It just flicks straight over to the next invoice that we selected to store. And we can see, again, we're all green here. We can just give it a quick glance over. Total 483.91. Our freight one, yeah, absolutely fine. Tax 73, yeah. Store. Very quick. Again, we've not typed anything yet, so there's less errors to be happening in terms of what you would be doing when you're typing this all in manually. So we go into our tasks, and again, obviously these tasks are coming into Peggy, the same user at the minute. In a real world scenario, they might have gone to someone else to assign the approvers, or it could be Peggy that is assigning the approvers, which in this case it is. So this time our task, that was our three-way match documents before, with our little tab, so we can close that one, and we've got a new task of assign approvers for these two invoices. So we'll start with the phone wizard, so we can just click on that, and then we can scroll down to see what we need to do here. Now, because this is a phone bill, it is something that the system does know about, but there's no PO, so it still needs approval in terms of the amounts, but it knows the departments that this particular phone bill belongs to because it's seen the invoice before. So in this case, there's general administration, their allocation is 242.12, and also management, his allocation is 614.97. If those need changing, you can change those. It's just took a recommendation from previous invoices as to what that split may be. Again, slightly different on this left-hand side this time. We don't have as many options. We've got the assign invoice, we've got the request new invoice with the supplier if we need to, and we can also reject the invoice given our reasons for doing so. But for this demonstration, we're going to confirm that. And then we're also going to look at the rapid transport invoice. This time it doesn't know about this invoice, so there's no GL codes assigned to it. So for this one, we're going to manually assign who needs to approve this invoice. So I'm just going to start typing. I'll start typing Peter. Again, that just shows how kind of the system doesn't really want you typing too much. As soon as I put one letter in, it gives me suggestions who I can select within the system. And I can say, right, we'll use Peter King for this particular one, and we can press confirm. So those particular tasks in terms of assigning the actual invoices are now removed from Peggy, but those of the eagle-eyed of you will notice that Peggy still does have a task up here, and her task is now to approve invoice because, funnily enough, Peggy actually comes under the general administration group. So part of that invoice is for her to approve. So she clicks on the invoice and she can see there the cost for general administration has been assigned 214.12 for you to approve. And again, Peggy can reject or approve this. And in this case, we're going to confirm that to approve. So the other half of that invoice went to management. Now, management being Elizabeth Cash. But Elizabeth, her day-to-day job is not sitting in DocuWare all day. She's not sat there waiting for tasks because most of the time, the only thing she does within the system is to approve invoices. So how would she know that she's got a task without having it open all day? So Elizabeth, if we go to her inbox and just refresh, is set up to get a notification. So any tasks that actually come through to her, if she's out and about on the road, or if she's working from home or anything like that, not in the system, she'll just get an email pinged to her phone and say, just to let you know, you do have an outstanding invoice to approve. Please approve it when you get a chance. Again, her kind of amount that she does need to approve will show once she logs into the system, and we can also assign again pound limits to what they can approve. So if it was over a certain threshold, then she might need managerial approval above her, but in this case, being the CFO, she's more than got the permission to sign this off herself. So we can click back into Chrome and we can go to Elizabeth's tasks and cost center approval. She can double click on it. She can see here that her allocated amount is £614.97 for this particular invoice. And as you can see, the stamps are coming through as the workflow progresses. You can see what's happened. So Peggy's approved her section and it's been assigned by Peggy as well. So full audit trail of what's going on within the system, who's approving what and when and for how much. So she's happy with that and we can press confirm. And just to show you the workflow working, the rapid transport invoice is assigned to Peter King there. However, we're just going to leave that one there because we've got plenty of invoices to work with in terms of exporting that data. So we'll go back to Peggy and we'll see that we've got another task, and that's the completion of the phone wizard. So now both cost centers, the general administration and the management, have approved their portion of that particular invoice. It comes back to Peggy just to say, right, I just need to confirm that they've been approved so I can confirm it for export. Yep, they're all approved. I can see the stamps, nice glance over. We can press confirm. Nice and straightforward. So then we need to make sure that we export this data to our system. And to do that, we can go to our lists again, and we can see how many invoices that we have remaining this time. If I click on ready to export in my lists, got it open as a tab there. We've now got the 3 invoices that we've processed. So we started with the WB Mason one, which was a quick match based on a utility bill. We had the high value US Steel one, which was a 3-way match. So that one matched against the invoice, the purchase order, and the delivery note. And then we've got the phone bill that was more of a manual workflow process, assigning the approvers to 2 different departments for them to allocate their value and then approve that. Once that's done, they then get tagged with this ready to export kind of value. Once we do export these, they will disappear from this list completely, preventing any duplicate imports going into your system. So how do we actually export it? Now, what I'm going to show you can be very much automated. I'm just showing it for the purpose of the demonstration. So if we go to our export utility, give it a second to open up, there we go. And we choose our export configuration. Now we've got several things in here for different kind of workflows and things. The one we're going to use is the booking record US, and we're going to choose a location as to where we want to export this particular file. And for that, I'm just going to choose libraries. I'll put it in my documents folder, nice and straightforward. And again, if we wanted to, we can set this to run on a schedule so it automatically runs on a certain day, week, month, or however you choose to export your data. For some systems as well, just an important note, you don't necessarily also need to export a file to import into another system. We can integrate directly with many systems as well. Some of the older systems, I think like Sage Line 50, we would need to export the CSV because there's no direct API within that. But like saying Sage Line 200, we can write an integration directly into the system, so you don't even need to worry about having anything export on a schedule or not. So for this, we're just going to manually click Perform Export Now. See your processes, export was completed, nice and quick. We straight away, for those watching in the background, instantly those tags, those lists that we have configured that are constantly searching for different values has cleared down because it knows that they have now been exported. And we can open our file location just to show you what this looks like. It exports to the CSV, and again, this can export into a folder that's watched by your system to, excuse me, so it picks it up automatically on schedule. If I just double click onto this and open it with Excel, you'll see we have our export data. Now, for those that have been paying attention, might be wondering, well, we had 3 invoices, but we've got what, seven lines of exported data, and the reason for that is because it exports a line per GL account. So yes, you might have the same invoice but different lines because it's going to different cost centers within the actual system that you're importing it into. Hence why we've got more data there than we did have actual invoices. And that really covers a basic accounts kind of payable demo, and hopefully it comes across at how quick it can be and how much time it can actually save you. We've just processed, with me talking through, 3 invoices into a system within less than 10 minutes that our process took, and that was obviously me explaining actually what was going on. So if you can imagine all those invoices coming in automatically from your inbox or being scanned in, if the physical ones, you scan them in your scanner or drag and drop them from your PC, wherever they come from, you can just work on them quickly, accurately and efficiently. Just to make everything much more or less error prone in terms of manual processes. Very, very little typing and very little manual entry onto any system. So just before I do finish, it's all well and good getting things scanned in and into the system, but how do you actually find them if you do need to look at them again? And that's dead straightforward. So if we go to our search feature just at the top here, and I'm going to do accounting, invoice search. And again, all these are fully customizable, security lock. So if I only see what I have permission for, it's not a case if I click on something, I get an error because I don't have the permissions. If I don't have the permission, I just don't see it. So I go into invoice search, and I've got several options. Now that can look quite daunting to look at, but it really isn't, because you don't have to fill all this information in. You only fill in the information that you want to search on. So you could do a full text search, or you could do an invoice number search, or you could say, actually, I just want to see every invoice that's been stored in the system today. So shortcut key, I just press X, that's today's date. I press search, and it brings me back all the invoices that have been allocated to the system today. And there you can see they're the ones that we've processed going through this demonstration. You could also combine different search results as well. So you can say, well, everything that's been stored today, but actually I only want to find the things that relate to rapid transport. And again, the quick list is coming up as suggestions, so it doesn't want to be typing too much. We click on that, we press search, and we've got today, because we filed this today, and it's just the rapid transport one. So the reason we have so many fields displayed is to make sure you can fine tune exactly what it is you're looking for, rather than just doing a full text search, which potentially could bring back all sorts of invoice numbers from different suppliers because they could use the same invoice numbering system. So it just allows you to filter things through and get that data that you need as quickly as possible. But yeah, thank you very much for listening. I will hand over back to Dave for the question and answer section.
Hello again, everyone, and thank you, Mark, for a brilliant demo. So we now conclude the demonstration and webinar series, but we'd like to give the audience a chance to ask any questions they might have around the process. So Bree, if you could kindly confirm if there are any questions.
Doesn't seem like there's any questions at the moment, guys.
Okay, brilliant. So hopefully Mark did a fantastic job of explaining it, so no questions needed. However, if you would like to explore this in more detail, we can set this up on a trial within your organisation so that you can practice a real-world scenario with your own data and see how it will further save you time. However, if you'd like to speak to one of us, then you're more than welcome to contact us on any of the contact details displayed there. So that concludes our webinar for today. I'd like to thank you all for your time in attending and letting us demonstrate to you the benefits of automating your accounts payable process. Thank you all very much and enjoy the rest of your day.